Hello, hello. We're back in the frequency video series, which is sounding super official, even though we're audio people, as you can see. I'm Michelle Khouri. I'm the CEO and founder of Frequency Media, and I'm here with a very special guest today.
Hi, I'm Enna Garkusha. I'm Frequency's producer.
Yes, you are our rock star producer, who is the lifeblood of production and who we appreciate so much. And we are here to talk about what exactly a producer does and what purpose a producer serves when creating a podcast. Now, of course, we are mainly talking about a podcast that is meant to deliver on a brand promise or attain revenue goals or something like that to be monetized. Because if you're a hobbyist and you just want to make your podcast for yourself, for the joy of it, or to get your message out to the world, you don't need a producer. But this is still helpful to watch because you are becoming a producer, whether you like it or not. So it's very helpful to know how professionals do it and how production companies do it so that you can start to mimic some of those behaviors and make your life easier. But this is mainly here to serve the purpose of clarifying for those who are about to endeavor and take on a podcast and you're sort of unsure, should we do it ourselves as a team? Can we do this internally? Or should we hire a producer to join our team just ad hoc as a contractor to manage this? Or should we go and hire a or should we go and hire a production team like Frequency Media to handle it for us and supplement, our internal capabilities? This is a good video to help clarify what a producer does and just how much help it can be to have one on board. So, I think a good place to start is to give an overview of the many facets of what a producer can do. So, Enna, just list out, just talk through some of the day-to-day, so that what a day-to-day looks like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my day-to-day is comprised of a lot, believe it or not. I am mostly responsible for managing workflows when it comes to production. So I'm managing timelines. I'm making sure that momentum is maintained. These are, a podcast is can be a long-term project. It can be especially if you're about to launch, that can look either short or it can look very long. And support is definitely needed because it's no small feat. So in addition to sort of managing workflows and timelines, I'm also supporting the host of the show in any prep that needs to be done before recording. I help put together research guides. I help put together a run of shows. I help manage the recording sessions themselves. So what that means is I'm in contact with the guest. I'm making sure that the guest, as soon as they are ready to press record, that they're completely prepped and they know what the session is going to look like. Not only that, but I'm also acting as support during the session and making sure that we hit all the points we know we want to hit. We record everything that was on our run of show that maybe like tangents that happen when things go off track. I'm there to sort of step in and be like, hey guys, let's get back to what we're here to do. And not only that, but also, especially in the age of COVID and remote recording, there's just a multitude of unpredictable factors that happen with technology, with the miscommunications with the guest, the host. I've been through it all at this point. So having someone to step in and be like, okay, what's happening, and sort of get everything back on track and make sure everyone feels comfortable and safe is part of what I do. And then not only that, but also once we have raw audio and we need to put that raw audio together into an episode, I'm pretty involved in that process. And depending on what kind of producer you have, sometimes your producer is also your editor. So they are the ones who are literally like stitching the audio files together.
Yes. What a great overview. And like, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot of, first of all, checks and balances, support systems, safety nets. And what it ends up doing, and I see this all the time, is you end up growing so close to our clients because you are a safety net. You're like, you are that person who's like, hey, let's do this again so that you sound the best possible. And so that we are getting these core elements of the episode, these key takeaways that we know from the beginning we wanted to get. Because when you're in the moment, Lord knows, you lose it sometimes. And you're just kind of like, you go on these tangents. I do the same thing. So having someone who's like, okay, like that's great conversation, but it has nothing to do with our core takeaway of the episode, in the moment, helping to manage that session and re-guide you and like detour is very, very good. And then, the post-production process, what you just mentioned, there's like few people who do it as well as you. The QC process, which is what we call it, the quality checking. So, Enna is listening to every single episode and providing feedback to our editors and saying, hey, we need to like refine this or cut this, or this music needs to be faded a little bit sooner or move it here. So that's the thing when you're working with a production team and you're hiring someone like FRQNCY to help with your production, you actually have several pairs of ears listening to every single episode as quality control. And for some people, that's a bit extra, right? For some people, you're like, we can do that internally. So that's where you can bring in a producer who is sort of like that embodiment of the whole production, especially if it's a lighter lift of a production, like an interview format, and it's pretty simple, no crazy bells and whistles. Then surely you can have that person, and then you all sort of become, as an internal team, the quality control and the quality checkers. You just want to make sure that you have enough time in your schedule to fit in the hours per week that it takes to do QCing, on the higher end, if you have like a bi-weekly episode, right? And that's a good point. So, talking about how we structure producers and editors and engineers and strategy, we actually divide those roles up. So I like every person to feel like full ownership over their role and to be able to really hone in on what they do and excel at it. And whereas other companies actually like one person to own pre-production, production, and post-production, and sometimes even marketing and promotion. We have content strategy team that handles some pre-production research, some of that like script editing, pre-production research, guest research, interview prep. And then we have Enna, who basically manages the whole workflow of it, and then everything she talked about. And then we have editors, sound designers, and composers who manage the actual technical post-production of piecing the episodes together. And Enna and I QC those episodes. And then we have a marketing specialist, a digital marketer, Paige, who is putting this video together, who handles the graphics. So there's like, it's a lot of touch points. And what that enables us to do is actually quite a few different people to catch anything, to experience the audio in a different way, which we think really behooves a larger production, especially.
Yeah. And I would say that, Michelle, like you and I, our role within this production company is that we are ultimately responsible for making sure that the client's vision is coming to life throughout that entire production process. And like where I come in, where you come in, is that as producers, we have the expertise to know what it's going to take for the client's vision to actually come to fruition.
That is such a great point. That is exactly what we're here to do. We become these beacons. We're involved from the beginning to the end of the production. We're like the only two that are really deeply involved from beginning to end. So we're the glue, and we help to translate that vision into audio. But also our content team, what's really cool, and I'm diverging a little bit, is that they become the guardrails for the strategy. So if we're ever like, that would be cool, they're like, hold up. We already know this listener likes this, and that. So it's cool to have those different touch points, but we are the glue. And we just mentioned executive producer, right? So what's the difference? I would say executive producer, I'm really involved as executive producer in our largest productions, the ones that have like the highest level guests, that need the most nuanced kind of support, and that need 2 layers of support in terms of producers. And so, Enna continues managing workflows, doing weekly check-ins with clients, which are so, so critically important, reminding like, these are the things that we have to do next week to keep our lead time in tow, which we'll talk about in a moment, and to keep all of these things running smoothly, because there's a domino of things that have to come after you record an episode, per se, for example. On an executive producer side, it's managing the strategy, it's managing the creative direction, it's actually managing the sessions and making sure that everything is in fact delivering on the vision altogether. So, executive producer tends to be really, really critical in a larger, much more complex production, where you're handling multiple pieces and parts, and where you're handling major talent as well. So, usually a production, we reserve that EP role for our largest, like I said. So you're probably okay having a producer or a production team. So I mentioned something very important here, and this is where a producer is so, so important, and it's lead time. And lead time is one of the things, I think it's probably, I don't know what you think, Enna, but like one of the most underrated but most important aspects of any production, whether it's an independent production or, a small brand making a show or a large brand, because the most important part of building an audience in podcasting is consistency. And you actually can't achieve consistency if you're not producing like clockwork ahead of schedule, so that you can release 10 weeks ahead of schedule, let's say.
100%.
So tell us a little bit about what your role is in ensuring lead time, and how you manage to, it really is like our buried treasure. It's like our holy grail of every production. So tell me a little bit about your experience as a producer with lead time.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's different for every production, and it differs depending on what kind of show you're looking to produce. Lead time is of the utmost importance, and I take my role in maintaining that accountability very seriously. I mean, the way I look at it is like, if you're, for example, somebody who's like looking into getting into investing, and you have no idea what that world even is or what it's like, you just know you want to be a part of it. Like, you need a coach, you need a mentor, you need somebody who's going to like give you like the truth that like, this is the time it takes, and these are the steps it takes for you to get to your goal. And so, yeah, I would say like that is something that I try my hardest to maintain with every single one of our clients, and being like, once you commit to a launch and you commit to a release schedule, if you aren't able to stick to that, it's going to affect the way your show is received. And so it's extremely important. And the more lead time we have, the better. And I would say like the shows with the shortest amounts of lead time tend to be the most stressful and the most chaotic.
Yes, without a doubt.
Who would have thought?
I know. Crazy. It's crazy how when you like do things in the last minute, there's so much room for error. Yeah, it is stressful for both us and the client. And so you do take your job seriously when it comes to lead time, and you do take your job seriously, and as do I, when it comes to ensuring that our client remains joyful about the production. So part of the benefit of hiring a production team is that we are, at least for frequency, we're so intentional about making sure that you enjoy what you're doing with the podcast. Like my goal for every single one of our clients is that you look at the podcast as a thing you get to do, as a thing that you're like, oh my God, I get to work on the podcast today, you know? So sometimes it takes a little bit to get there. Sometimes it takes some like pushing them to like review, approve, provide feedback, help us with scheduling if there's a host involved, so that we can get the lead time that enables joy. Because it's so fun to have lead time and to be working ahead of schedule, because then you can sink into the joy and the marketing of the episode that's coming out on a given day. Because remember, you got to promote it, right? You got to grow the audience. So that's what we are here to do, is to make sure you feel supported, is to make sure that you have all the tools that you need to deliver on a well-researched, well-prepared for, well-structured, strategic, and high-quality podcast. And in a nutshell, that's what your production team does. So I hope that this gave you some good insights. Enna, you're such a rock star, and we're so lucky that your production brain is working on our clients' productions. And we hear it from them all the time that they're so grateful for you. So thank you for sharing the mic with me today. We love you. And we love producers everywhere. And hopefully this was really helpful to help you make a decision on whether you're going to produce yourself, hire a producer, or hire a production company.
Hire a producer.
Hire a production company.
Trust us.
All right. Thanks, Enna.
Thanks, Michelle.